this is Mad Dog 1296. I'm going to do something special for the new players or people that don't have DLCs or want to test out Destiny 2 and see how it is. So, there is a lot of activities you can actually do in Destiny 2. So, by pressing the middle button on the controller, you will be able to go from orbit, menu. So, this is what you have access to. If you don't have seasonal, if you don't have any of the DLCs, and you are brand new or just want to test out Destiny. So, what you can and cannot do, I'm going to go with can first and then go through what you can't do. So, there is a lot of destinations, there's a lot of activities you can do, and there's a lot of other things you can do to the game besides the campaigns and the raids that come with the campaigns. So, you are able to explore the entire Exodus, do as many strikes as you want. You have full access to these strikes. You have full access to the public events. You also have access to the wow, I can't fucking talk today. You have access to the lost sectors. There we go. So you have access to these lost sectors. If you do them, you'll be able to unlock the legendary master. If you have not unlocked the lost sector, you cannot do neither for the daily reset. Reset is daily, is resetted by 9 a.m. if you're Western, 11 a.m. if you're Central, and 12 p.m. if you're Eastern United States. So, depending where you are in the United States, this is where you can do. It starts in those days. Each lost sectors would be different for the weekly. You just gotta go through the planets to see which one's available. So, for example, it's EDZ Day, which you will see the symbol. You can get exotics, you can get legendaries. You can also get enhancement cores that are more common than getting exotic. But you will not have access, since you don't have seasonal, you will not have access to this. Because you need to have anti-barrier and non-stop. Which the only way you can have access to that if you have the seasonal. You must have the artifact to be able to have anti, on-stop, and overload. These are your champions. Champions are hard to kill enemies that are required for you to have those specific ways of killing them. For example, this is Cabal. So there's different ways of knowing which one's going to be which and which enemy is going to be which. So Cabal anti is going to be the Citarians. Actually, no, Colossals. And now stops will more likely be incinerators or the Ogres, depending on which lost sector you're doing. So if you're doing Taken, the Overload will be Sniper Hobgoblin. That's Taken. If you're doing anti-bear Taken, they're going to be... Actually, no, I don't think there is anti... Is there? So there will be Unstop for Taken, which would be the Ogres. The Taken Ogres will be Unstops. The Overloads would be Champions, which would be Captains. The Fallen Taken Captain. That would be your Overload. So, if you think about each class, you would know which one's going to be anti-barrier, which enemy is going to be Unstop, and which one's going to be Overload. Fallen, it's always going to be this order. Cabal, Captains are Overload. Minotaurs are anti. Well, no, wow. I literally fucked up on that. So, the way of this is captains are going to be for Fallen, will be Overload. The servitors will be anti-barrier. Those are only two correspondents of champions you need to worry about. I don't think there's any race that requires all three. They can be. I'm not sure. I haven't done Lost Sector in a while. But I can tell you this. Now for Vex, the Hobgoblins will be anti. The Minotaurs will be overload. Scorn, same thing as Fallen. Scorn can go as Overload Captain. And then instead of the anti-barrier servitors, since Scorn doesn't have servitors, it's going to be Unstoppable Abominals. Or it can be, yeah, Unstoppable Abominals. So those are the only ones that can be unstopped. There's no anti-barrier for Scorn either. So those are the ways of knowing which champion goes which weapons go which. If you're a free to player, you will not be able to have access to this. You won't have any access to unstops unless you have a specific weapon that has a built-in unstop, built-in overload, or built-in anti-barrier. Like Monarch has overload built-in. Maleficence has built-in unstop. So those are the lost sectors. Those are the strikes. You also have strikes on Moon. You will not have access to. Without without Shadowkeep, you don't have access to it. You don't have access to Shadowkeep, and you don't have access to Pit of Heresy. You can do the first mission, which is Beyond, but that is it for the Moon. You can also do activities as Altars of Sorrow for free. You can also do Lost Sectors. You can also do public events. You're not going to be able to do the Duality Dungeon, of course, because you don't have the Duality Key. South and Stoneworld. You have access to the full destination. You don't have access to the strikes. You don't have access to the Spire Watcher, but you do have access to the Enclave. But to do the Enclave, you have to do the Arrival campaign, which will be located in this spot. You will not have access to the Preservation or the Raid. Strikes are off limits until you have Witch Queen. Same thing with the Wellspring. You will not have access to this or any of these activities unless you have Witch Queen. Cosmodrome. This is a basic map. You have full access to this, all the strikes, Fallen, Saber, Devil's Lair, Disgrace. You will not have access to Grass of Nervous. That's a dungeon, you need a dungeon key for that, which you can get it by getting it 30th anniversary. Or you can pay for the dungeon, which would be, I think, like $10.99 or $9.99. Either way, you still have access to the Lost Sectors, which there only is 2 in the Cosmodrome. You have access to all strikes. EDZ, you have full activities. You won't have activity for the Defiant because that requires you to have Season 16. You are not you won't have any access to the dungeon, of course, Battlegrounds, the farm, the node, order, arval, whatever you want to call it. You have access to the arms dealer, the lost sectors, of course, except for the legendary master, public events. But you will not have access to exotic quests unless you have. Is it? I don't think you do. It's been a while. But I don't think you can get the exotics unless you have Lightfall. Whichever, yeah, you can't get it. You have to have the previous map packs to be able to do the exotics due to the fact that each exotic is a quest of the seasonal. So, you won't be able to have any access to the exotic missions. Europa, you have access to the first mission, which will be located right here. Or it can be located right here, I forget which area exactly. You have access to the landing zones. You have access to the lost sectors. You won't have any access to the exo challenges or any new challenges or anything like that because you have to complete the campaign. You will not have any access to the Glassway because you need the map pack for that. And you won't have any access to Deepstone. Neptune, you won't have any access to the raid, of course. Strikes, the weekly campaign, and the headlong time trial. You won't have any access to that. There's going to be exotic quests going to be located here that you cannot do unless you complete the campaign and have the DLCs. You are able to do the Vex Exclusion Zone. You are able to do the Terminal Overload. You have access to the landing zones and the lost sectors, just not the Masters or Legendary. Last two. You will have access to this, but there is limitations of what you can and cannot do. What you can and cannot do. Last Wish you cannot do without Forsaken. Shadow Throne you can't do without the key. Corrupted you cannot do without Forsaken. It literally says right there, Destiny 2 Forsaken. You're required to have that, or you cannot do the strike. Warden of Nothing, you still can't get it unless you have Forsaken. There is some strikes you can acquire, which is the base ones that shows you that you can do. Those are the Vanguard ops you're able to do. You're not going to be able to do any of the strikes I showed you, including Corrupted. So, you have no access to this. To those strikes, I mean. But you do have access to the Vanguard ops. You will not be able to have any access to the Grandmaster. I'm not sure if you can have access to the Nightfall, which it's a location, so it's either going to be the 2 strikes in that location, so you're not going to have it unless you have the DLCs. So if it's, let's say, this week's is the Lightblade, you cannot do Lightblade for Nightfall or the Grandmaster. So this is the only activity you can do in Vanguard. Gambit is free. It's very boring. No one ever plays it, so don't even bother doing it. Crucible, you have full access to it except for Trials. Trials of Osiris, you have no access to it unless you have the previous map pack, which in this case would be Lightfall. You had to have Lightfall for this. But any other activities in PvP, you have full access to. Eternity. Grant Severus, I showed you on Cosmodrome. That's a dungeon for Cosmodrome. You have no access to it unless you have the key, or you have a 30th anniversary. You do have activity to Days of Eternity, for some reason. Actually, no. You need 30th anniversary to get that for access. But you should still be able to go to the Treasure Hoard with no problem. That's a free location, so you can go to the Hoard. I'm not really sure about Days of Eternity. It can be just for the 30th anniversary. I'm not sure. It's been forever since I've been a free character. For a 6-man activity, you do have access to Vault of Glass, Crota's End, Keen's Fall. Those are the 3 raids you have full access to and full ways to do it without any problem with the DLCs. Vault of Glass, Crota's End, and Keen's Fall are a reprised raids, so you have full access to them. You can do the raids, you can do the masters. You're just going to have very, very hard chance. If you do not have the seasonal, you're going to have a hard chance of taking care of the champions if you're doing masters. But normal, Keen's Fall, the only champions in this raid is only on the first encounter, which is Ballistica, which is totems. You're required to have Unstoppable unless your teammates can make it fast enough to kill them. Just be wary and be careful of your surroundings so you don't get killed by them. Ball to Glass. The only champions, there's few encounters that this requires. You are required to take care of Overload and Conflux, and you're required to take care of Overloads and Gatekeeper, which is the first and fourth encounter. So those are the access you have. Crota's End does not have any champions on normal, so you're perfectly fine to explore that raid and deal with your buddies. You won't have any requirements besides 1790. You need to be 1790 or higher to be able to withstand the damage that you'll be intaking. So, those are activities besides tower. Of course, you have access to the tower. Those are activities you can do for free with no DLCs, no seasonals. This is what you can do for free. You're required to get Forsaken if you're going to get the 3 exotic ciphers from the Forsaken loot in the exotic cipher, exotic chaos in tower. You need to have Forsaken for that. For Curse of Osiris, any of those you are fine with. Forsaken you need, Witch Queen you need, Lightfall you need to have those weapons that have been repressed. Well, faulted technically. So this ends the video here. I hope this helps you guys. And sorry for my speech impediment for not making full sentences. I'm trying my best to talk as much as I can and do better as I can. I hope this helps you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.